Am I the a-hole for opening my husband's safe with a crowbar to get money for an emergency? I, female 31, am a stay-at-home mom with 2 kids. My husband dedicates most of his salary towards the kids and household, but has a safe that he puts money in on a monthly basis. I didn't make a fuss over it, because he said that it saved money for an emergency. I asked for the password countless of times, but he refused to give it to me and said that in case of an emergency, all I needed to do was inform him. He went on a 2-day business trip. Our son got sick and I had to take him to the hospital. The problem is, he needed medication but I didn't have any money except what was in the safe. I called my husband but he didn't respond. I texted him explaining the situation but he refused to cut his trip short and come home. I asked how I was supposed to get money for medication, and he suggested I either A, wait for him till he gets home, or B, borrow money from the neighbors. I just had it. I hung up and went to the garage to grab a crowbar, then took it to the safe and opened it. I took the money I needed, which was about $60, and went to the pharmacy store to get the medication. My husband came home a bit earlier, and when he saw what I'd done to the safe, he flipped out and started freaking out at me. I said I had no choice, and that all his suggestions were unreasonable and illogical for me to even consider. He yelled, saying I breached his trust and his boundaries, and should have never touched the safe, much less used the crowbar on it. We had a big argument and he kept saying that I had no respect for him, his income and instructions. Then he completely refused to speak to me and is threatening to move the safe since he no longer trusts me around it. Was I in the wrong for the steps I took? Should I have tried another alternative? Edit. I didn't have any credit cards because he's the one that normally has them since they were in his name, and I don't have a bank account to be able to own a credit card. Now for the top comments. This is financial abuse, and it's absolutely insane. Go to the neighbors and borrow money? Seriously? If my neighbor came to me and asked to borrow money because her husband left on a 2-day business trip and left her with no money, I'd call Adult Protective Services. I'd ask if she needed help getting to a women's shelter with her kids. It's 2022. Never mind the fact that as the working parent, he should have set up an account for you, the caregiver, with a few $100s for care expenses at all times. But like $60 for an extremely sick child? We live in an age of instant transfers, and there's a huge big box of money in the home, and it says borrow it from the neighbors? Not the whole times infinity. You and your children are victims of mistreatment. You need to get out, my dear. So much this. Get out. Run. If only it were so easy. That's why people financially mistreat spouses so that they can't leave. Opie couldn't even get her hands on $60 for kids' medicine without taking drastic measures. How is she supposed to just leave the house? I would assume she's socially isolated, especially since she didn't have friends/family she could call for help either. And she might even be in a rural area, without access to services like a women's shelter. I'm not saying she shouldn't start planning and squirreling away what she can, but just saying run for the hills isn't exactly helpful in these scenarios. She should absolutely start hiding away money whenever she can, and make copies of all important documents as well. Frankly, her best bet would have been to clear out that safe entirely and run with it. But she definitely needs to start making a plan to become independent of her husband, because he's controlling and that is dangerous. Not the a-hole. You do realize that the fact that he cares more about money and this supposed breach of trust than your son's health is highly concerning, right? This behavior is not normal. The fact that he left you with no money and you have access to no money is financial abuse. Let him move the safe, all the way out of the house along with his sorry butt. Nah, don't let him move the safe. She should take the rest of the money in it and deposit it into a bank account in her name, then kick him out. She'll need the money to live on until the divorce is finalized. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my sick wife to deal with 2 toddlers on her own? I'd like to give a little bit of background first. I'm male 36 and my wife, female 35, have a 3-year-old daughter. I have a long-standing issues with my wife's sister-in-law because I think that my wife constantly panders to her and caters to her every whim, often at the expense of me and my daughter. Recently, we had a huge fight about her saying something offensive to me in a public setting in defense of sister-in-law at our daughter's expense. And up until this point, she has tried to do better. Now, we've been both floored with flu for the past 10 days or so, negative COVID tests. She seems to have it slightly worse than me, so I've been tagged in to do all chores, childcare, and cooking while she's tried to get as much rest as possible. This has now trickled into a week I booked off work on holiday, which doesn't bother me in itself because I'd rather make sure they were both okay. I am, however, starting to feel really run down myself now. I'm tired. I've had limited opportunity to rest and catch up on sleep, and I'm sore. Today my wife woke up at around 9:15 a.m. I'd been up since 6:30 with daughter and said she was feeling a bit better. I said that's great, and maybe she could hold the fort while I went for a nap. She said that what she was actually thinking was inviting sister-in-law's youngest around for a playdate to keep our daughter occupied. For reference, she's 3. This isn't an uncommon thing to happen. Sister-in-law often brings her kids to us, and for reasons I still don't understand, our daughter was never invited to spend an afternoon with them in their house. I said that I really wasn't feeling up to it today. My wife said that I wouldn't have to do anything to entertain them, to which I was skeptical about, but I agreed. So about 15 minutes after she arrives, I'm asked to get them drinks and snacks and then play games and occupy them. Now, I'm aware that I'd have needed to do this for my own daughter, but going from 1 to 2 toddlers is such a huge leap in terms of the demand on your time and energy. Add this to the fact that I was feeling lousy and it just wasn't a good mix. I'm off work this week, and on top of my illness, I didn't sign up for extra childcare duties. After about 2 hours, I told my wife that I was going up to my mom's house to get a sleep. The whole way up, she was phoning and texting me, absolutely furious that I'd left her to deal with it. I'm literally lying in my mom's spare bed writing this now, but my brain is too wired to sleep. Am I the a-hole? I know it's horrible leaving her while she's sick to deal with 2 toddlers, but after so long holding the ball, I've reached my limit. Not the a-hole at all. You told her you needed rest, and she decided to have a guest over? You should have just gone to take a nap as soon as the other kid arrived. God, I wish I had done this, right as sister-in-law walked in. Why would she invite a toddler over when both of you are still sick? The toddler could pick up the flu at your house and bring it home with her. Exactly. And now, Opie, you are at your mom's house while ill? This whole thing is an absolute disaster. Have we forgotten the flu can also be dangerous? The whole thing is irrational. If children were going to be doing play dates, Opie's toddler should have gone to sister-in-law's, and then both Opie and the wife could rest. Not the a-hole. First of all, you are both sick. Why would your wife want to potentially give that to her niece? Secondly, when both parents are ill and in general is a team effort, you should have your fair share of rest. Otherwise, all that is gonna happen is one will get better whilst the other runs themselves down, physically and emotionally. Your wife invited her around, and your wife should look after her. Next story. Am I the a-hole for yelling at my wife after she woke me up to help with the kids? My wife, Sonia, is a stay-at-home mom to our 2 children, 7 male and 5 female. I really try to help with the kids when I get home. I know being a stay-at-home mom is pretty tiring, even though she has part-time off from school, but helping with homework, making food, and taking care of kids can be exhausting. So when I get home, I make dinner, wash the dishes, and stay with our children for a while so she can have her moment too. These weeks have been pretty exhausting. It is a very important month professionally because in November will be the delivery of a 6-month project that my team and I are idealizing. Last week was the final touches and review for the entire project. So I went to work at 8 a.m., got home at 5 p.m., took care of my kids until 9 p.m., and was actually working until 3 to 4 a.m. to maybe get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I have trouble sleeping. So if I slept 12 hours in 5 days, it was a lot. I was exhausted. I wasn't even driving because I didn't trust my senses to drive. I couldn't vent to Sonia because she was stressed too as our children had a flu. I was dragged to the hospital by my coworkers after nearly passing out for only walking. The doctor demanded that I take a week's medical leave because I was already on the verge of a burnout. When I got home, I spoke to my wife and she seemed to be understanding. I asked her to give me a day off from everything as I would try to get as much sleep as possible that night to come back better. She said fine. I offered to also give her a day off because I know she was tired too. I went to sleep at 9 p.m. and woke up to Sonia nudging me to take the kids to school. I walked with them. I talked about what we talked about yesterday and she said, yeah, but that's your part of the morning and I have other morning plans. Yoga class, gym, and house cleaning. I asked her 3 times more to do this for me as I was still exhausted. 6:30 a.m. But she just said, you're still a father, tired or not. It could be tired or not, but I ended up losing my mind and screaming, I just need a few hours of sleep. Please respect what I asked of you yesterday and let me sleep. She was in shock and said, okay then. She took the kids and I slept until 4 p.m. There were several messages from her saying that I shouldn't have yelled at her for asking me to take responsibility as a parent and that it was toxic behavior of mine. Well, we haven't talked much more than necessary for 2 days. Am I the a-hole? Yes, I could take them, but as I said in the text, I have a lot of trouble sleeping. After getting up and taking them, it would take a good few hours to get back to sleep, even when exhausted. I answered in the comments and I'll put it as extra. 1. Our children stay from 7:15 a.m. until 1 p.m. at school. My wife picks them up from school and stays with them until 5 p.m. when I get home. 2. The things she does, gym and yoga, take up 2 hours a day. When she gets home, she cleans the house, sweeps, waters the plants, washes clothes, makes lunch, absolutely everything in the house. I don't think the division of tasks is so unfair because I'm not 100% the one who takes care of the kids at night. While I make dinner and wash the dishes, she stays with them and we also have family moments. My kids are in the spirit seeing face, series and movie 8,000 times. I don't think it's that unfair because it's chaotic sometimes. And I know that being responsible for our kids all day is exhausting, so I offer the same to her later. I couldn't put all this in a post due to limit words. Now for the comments. Given the context, not day hall. A doctor literally ordered you to rest, and your wife agreed to help you. If roles were reversed and you took time off work to step in for your wife, you would be the a-hole for waking her up. She didn't respect your valid medical need to rest. Your doctor even ordered a week of medical leave to rest. If this isn't a recurring thing outside of this isolated incident, not the a-hole. I agree. While I'm just assuming here, Opie's wife didn't need to go to the gym or yoga if it was just for fun, and could have walked the kids to school since Opie's doctor literally ordered him to rest. It would have been a different story if the doctor hadn't otherwise. This right here. Also, it appears that the wife gets a 2-hour break every day for yoga/gym. When does Opie get his 2-hour per day break? Not the a-hole. As a rule, I tend to go with your the a-hole or everyone sucks here when it comes to yelling at people. But while I'm still not a fan even in this situation, it came after trying to be reasonable 3 times. I also usually see the men on here with stay-at-home wives as a-holes because they think their wives should wait on them hand and foot. That's clearly not the case here. It sounds like she has unfair expectations of you. You were literally sick, and she wanted to do yoga. You may apologize to her for yelling, but you standing your ground was not toxic. A good loving wife wouldn't be trying to argue fairness when you're sick from exhaustion. She needs a wake-up call about her entitlement. So let me get this straight. You take the kids to school. They're in school until what, 3? She watches them for 2 hours, then you take over? And otherwise, she does the cooking and housework. Yeah, cooking and housework is a lot, but come on. That's not really a fair division of labor. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my husband drive my son to school with his step-siblings anymore? Context. My ex-husband and I have custody of our 11-year-old son. He's diabetic, and since his diagnosis is relatively new, we're still working on managing things for him so he could continue to live a normal life just like other kids. His stepdad is responsible for dropping him off/picking him up from school, since his step-siblings attend the same school. The issue began when my son started asking me or his bio-dad to take him to school instead of his stepdad. He said a reason for that is because his step-siblings open his lunchbox and take all the additional snacks that he needs in case he had a hypoglycemic episode. That's what we call low blood sugar. His step-siblings would take his lunchbox from him and take the snacks, and only leave him his sandwich and water. His stepdad thinks there's nothing wrong with sharing, although I explained to him about a millionth times how important his snacks are. He promised that he won't let his kids touch my son's lunchbox from now on, and I believed him. Then days ago, my son came home and told me his step-siblings took his snacks from his lunchbox again. I was enraged. I asked if his stepdad saw them. He said yes, and he scolded him when he refused to let them have the snacks. I lost it. I blew up at my husband and told him that my son won't be riding in his car again with his step-siblings after what they've done, and after he allowed it. I told him that my son's father will be driving him to and from school from now on. He lashed out at me saying that I was driving a wedge between the kids and teaching my son to grow up being selfish and self-centered and antisocial, and also making my son distant from him and getting him to favor his bio-dad. I refused to discuss it, and now he's acting all hurt and disrespected, saying it was not worth ruining the kids' relationship over some snacks. Edited? His argument is that I don't get his kids the same amount of snacks I get for my son. They go through their snacks in no time. In my defense, I said that the snacks are part of my son's diabetes management routine, and he, unlike his step-siblings, needs them anytime. And so I don't feel like I'm obligated or that I should buy step-siblings the same amount of snacks seeing that they can do without them for a while. Am I making sense here? My stepchildren's ages are 13 and 10. Unless your husband has some kind of rare cognitive impairment, that means he doesn't understand the meaning of medical condition. He's the one who's the a-hole here, not you. As a longtime Reddit fan, my first instinct is, of course, to suggest dumping him, but I'm trying to curb that instinct. Aw, come on, you know you want to. Maybe just this once. You know, for old time's sake. Just joking with you. But yeah, I agree, the husband is either a bully or an idiot that doesn't understand how dangerous this medical condition can be. Even if he doesn't understand the severity of the medical issues, he does understand that his sons are stealing the majority of his stepson's lunch. If he thought it was unfair his stepson got so many more snacks, he could easily pack snacks for his sons. He is definitely a bully rather than an idiot. Not the a-hole. But maybe it's time to have a conversation with your husband about possibly modifying the custody arrangement for your son, because he is neglecting the boy's very real medical needs in a way that can have very dire health consequences. Also, taking all of something is not sharing. Modify the custody arrangements? How about modifying the marriage arrangements? Am I the a-hole for not sending my kids to their stepdad's funeral? My male 42 and my ex-wife, female 40, have 2 children. Let's call them Bart, male 15, and Lisa, female 11. My ex-wife married Mo the year after our divorce. We set up a joint custody arrangement where I have the kids for 14 days and she has them for another 14 days. I had never even known Mo beyond being my ex-wife's new husband, but I respect him, and I do not interfere in their relationship at all. Unfortunately, Mo died, and my ex is devastated now. She seems to really like him, and this is a hard time for her. All of this happened while the kids were with me. My ex-wife called me to bring the kids to the funeral, and I said it would be fine, no problem. I told the kids that, and I was surprised when they told me they didn't want to go. Bart even said, "We're glad he died." I was shocked. He never said that about anybody. Lisa also said she didn't want to go, and she just wanted to stay here with me. I asked them many times if they were sure, and they said yes over and over again. So I called my wife and told her that I wouldn't drive them to the funeral. They just didn't want to go. She asked for a moment. Then after a minute, she started screaming softly, like when you want to scream but don't want people around you to hear, and asked me what I meant and to take them there now. I just told her they didn't want to go, and I wasn't going to make them do anything against their will. So she started calling our kids. Bart answered his phone, and he just said, "No, Mom, we don't want to go. Get over it," and hung up. After a while, I hear a loud bang on my door. I open it, and it was my ex-wife. She immediately gets into my house and starts looking around to get Bart and Lisa. My ex asked me where they were, and I just told her in their room. She goes right there to knock on their door and tell them to get ready and to go to the funeral. The 3 of them have a heated argument through the door. She demanded I open the door with my key. I have a key, but I will not open the door if they don't want to. Then she tries to get into my room, finds my bunch of keys, and says, "Which one is it?" I get pretty fed up, so I tell her to leave or I'll call the police. And she yells at me, "I'm their mother. They will come with me." So I yell back, "I'm their father, and we have an agreement. Now leave." She finally leaves, but not before saying that she will take me to court for parental alienation. The kids leave their room about half an hour later, apologizing for all the trouble. My ex-wife then posted a bunch of stories that night about how sad and angry she was, because not only did her husband die, but her ex-husband, me, alienated the kids and didn't even let them say goodbye to their stepfather. Everyone in the family has seen these stories, and now tell me I'm a heartless, vindictive ex who's using the kids to punish my ex at her worst moment. Maybe I should have driven them to the funeral? This situation is just too much. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I have so many questions. Did you ask the kids why they were glad he was dead? Did you ask the kids why they didn't want to go and support their mother? Did you even frame it to them as, it's not about the stepfather, but about being there for her? You know, because she was in pain and wanted her children there with her? There has to be more to this story. Teenagers are selfish and might have only been thinking of their feelings. So why don't they care about Mom? I vote everyone sucks here until there's more clarity. Did you ask the kids why they were glad he was dead? No, I didn't. And also no to the second question. Putting it that way sounds like I'm a selfish monster, but didn't want to push the topic and upset them. With all due respect, they were already upset. This was a big choice, and saying they were glad it's gone was a big declaration. It needed a follow-up. Not the a-hole. If you care enough, reply with a real story on the posts. I'm sharing what I know. Yes, some details are missing, but those are missing for me too. My children didn't tell me any background, and I didn't push it. I thought it might upset them. And they never said anything negative about their stepdad before. And now suddenly Bart says they're glad it's gone. I did cut something because of character limit, but Mo died after going drinking with some people. They were at a not-so-nice part of our city and decided to go back walking. They were jumped by strangers and Mo didn't make it. So stepdad was unalived in a violent attack, and you didn't talk to them at all about their feelings about that? On top of not asking them about why they were glad he was offed? On top of not asking them why they didn't want to support their mother as she grieves? You need to sit with them ASAP. And therapy might be a good idea. Next story. Am I the a-hole for shouting at my girlfriend for giving away $110 to her coworker? So this happened yesterday and I am still so angry about it that I am shaking. I recently moved into a condo with my girlfriend, Sam. We are getting by all right, but we are in no way wealthy. Just better off than most. I take care of most of the finances for us because Sam doesn't like to talk about money. Every time I try to bring up our finances, Sam shuts down or she gets easily agitated. She's like this because her family used to fight over money a lot, and she doesn't want that for us. As a result, I have to watch our finances, and it's hard because she doesn't want to communicate this with me. I've been managing our finances, and I've noticed that we haven't been able to save as much as we'd like as we are saving for a trip in Florida. We have an outstanding bill that needs to be paid like the internet, and that will put us back a bit, though not by a heck of a whole lot. Sam invited her coworkers over to our house yesterday while I was out with my family. One of her coworkers, Daniela, was also there. Daniela's boyfriend passed away recently, and she has been struggling to take care of herself and her kids. So Sam decided to give Daniela $110 as she felt bad for her situation. I came home a few hours after everyone left, and Sam told me what she did. Sam thought I would have been very proud of her, but I was furious, and she could see it. I tried very hard not to lose my temper. But then Sam said, it is my money, and it's my money to give. This really set me off. And I said, excuse me? But this is our money. We pulled our expenses together. I don't mind it if you gave her some of our coupons, $20 or some of our gift cards we have, but $110? What the heck is wrong with you? Sam explained that $110 wasn't a lot of money, and that's when I told her that because of her action, we are no longer saving money. She then got mad going into different directions and said things like, money isn't that important. Well, if you only worked in a better job, ask your family for money. Sam left for her parents' place. She's tried calling me a few times this morning, but truthfully, I don't have it in me right now to talk to her without being mad. Am I wrong though? I understand she was trying to do the right thing, but what really upsets me about this is that she didn't even talk to me about this before giving Daniela the $110. It makes me feel like she doesn't see me as a partner. Edit. I realize I didn't add this in and I apologize. The money came from our joint account. Everyone sucks here. You are correct. She does not see you as a partner, and refusing to talk about finances is very unhealthy for a relationship. That said, your reaction has only cemented her reasoning for not discussing finances with you. I don't see this lasting unless you can both pull your heads out of your butts and talk to each other like adults. So a really critical component is off limits because she can't handle it? BS. Do you see how he reacted? He is shaking in anger writing a Reddit post many hours later. I don't blame her for not wanting to talk to him about money. That is an incredible overreaction. Because giving away money you can't afford to is scary. And it shows she has no respect or concept of how the world works and continues to bury her head in the sand whilst giving out free money. It's ludicrous. Depends on your perspective of afford. To Sam, it seems they could afford it because they had at least that much in their account. To Opie, they can't afford it because the amount stopped their savings. The deeper issue for me is that Sam refused to share until now that this is how she views finances because she refuses to talk about it and makes Opie be in charge of all finances. I do agree that since she de facto put Opie in charge, there's really no scenario she should have given away money without conferring with Opie first on if they could afford it. Nah. If she has no idea what they are spending on a monthly basis, then she has no right at all to give away joint money. Nope, never cool. Next story. Am I the a-hole for making my 30 female boyfriend 29 male lose his job? So my boyfriend is super upset with me and I need to make sure I'm not crazy. We worked from home for the same company, but he didn't know how to do the position he had. He faked his resume, and I believed I'd be able to help because it wasn't so bad. It turned out to be way more than what I thought a job would be. I was having to do both his and my job every day, and even though the schedule was 8 to 5, he wouldn't wake up until 10:30 every day, leaving me alone with both jobs and our 2-year-old. I let it be known for weeks that I was really stressed, and this job was killing me. Fast forward to last Monday. For some reason, I had this feeling he was being sneaky, so I looked through his phone. I know it's wrong. But anyway, he was on Tinder and messaging some girls on IG, so I was understandably upset. I chose not to do his job or even log on for him that day. He ended up losing his job and was like, well, you got what you wanted. Now it's your responsibility to pay the bills all in your own salary. Am I the a-hole here? I don't feel wrong in the way I feel, but it's making me feel guilty for basically screwing over our family and being immature. Now for the top comments. Girl, WTF. I'm going to say you're the a-hole, and by that, I don't mean you're an a-hole to him. I mean you created this situation by doing his job in the first place, despite it being against your best interests. You draw the line at cheating, and not at employment fraud? Yeah, there's 2 conflicts here. One with her and her boyfriend, where she's not the a-hole because he's a deadbeat and a cheater, but she is the a-hole to her employer for swindling them. Employer is irrelevant, given that they'll screw her without a second thought. The important thing is, she's the a-hole to herself. This may fall into actual crime/fraud territory. Even if it doesn't, she's basically given her awful boyfriend a surefire way to get her fired from her job if he gets vindictive. You're the a-hole to yourself. A level of gullibility and manipulation here is amazing. He lied about his qualifications and got you a second job. You're working one job for you and one for him. Then he screams at you for effectively quitting the second job. Given the level of lying and manipulation, why would you be surprised to find that he's also lying about being faithful? Choose a new boyfriend who doesn't lie and who doesn't require you to go along with his lies. She was working 3 with watching their child. She actually has 2 children. The deadbeat she procreated with and their child. Not the a-hole, but if you stay with him, you are the a-hole to yourself and child. Everyone sucks here, but your boyfriend is worse. You both work together to commit fraud against your employer, which is what has created that situation. He cheated on you while leaving you to deal alone with the stress that your joint decision to defraud your employer was causing. So while you maybe should have told him you would no longer be doing the job for him, so he had the opportunity to at least try to keep his job, although I imagine he would have struggled, he is definitely still worse. You should be cautious with your next move though. If he decides he has nothing else to lose and tells your employer what happened, you would probably also lose your job. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not accepting a free vacation to help out my stepdad? When I was younger, I went on an overseas trip with my mom and stepdad to go see a side of the family. Almost as soon as we landed, they started arguing. I was sent outside, and when I came back in, my mom was acting cagey. She told me one of my stepdad's cousin was getting married in 2 days, but not to worry about it. She kept saying that and was acting really strange, so I kept pushing until she explained. Yes, the cousin was getting married, but only symbolically. The cousin's family was desperate and needed a cultural wedding to happen for some reason. He'd already agreed to help out, so she couldn't really say no, but not to worry because it didn't mean anything because it was only symbolic, which is when I figured out how he was helping out. She reassured me that it didn't mean anything and begged me to just be polite. It was just going to be a fun party and good opportunity to learn more about other cultures. That entire day is a blur, but the food was good. We went home fairly early. My mom and I spent the rest of the trip as just us, while my stepdad was with his family. But once we got home, everything was completely normal, and we never really talked about any of that again. Until today. My stepdad called to ask if we, meaning me, my wife, and daughter, would come for a vacation in his home country. He would pay for everything. He was really pushing for it, so I pushed back. And he confessed that along with family time, he also needed me to come along so they could undo the symbolic marriage, so that a cousin could get married to her significant other. Because she currently can't because she's considered to be already married to me. I don't see a reason to. It wasn't a legal wedding in the first place. It literally couldn't have been for several reasons. So there shouldn't be anything to undo. He said he was sorry that this happened. But now we can just fix this and never think about it again. I don't really want to go to his country. It's not really safe to go there in the first place. And I don't really like the idea of getting trapped somewhere again where I don't know the language or what's going on. He's telling me that I'm selfish. Because while it obviously doesn't affect me, not fixing it does affect the cousin and isn't letting her move on. My mom is pleading with me to go. That is one day out of a vacation that my stepfather is willing to pay for because he feels so terrible about it. My wife, on the other hand, doesn't think I should go because it's not safe. And it's not something that should be my problem anyway. I've asked my father, and he's torn. Obviously, I don't have to go. But if it is that easy, maybe a free vacation isn't a bad idea and I'd be helping someone. But I don't want to. Why do you have to be involved at all? Did they symbolically marry you off without your knowledge? Not Yehol. Edited to add, wait, you were the one who was married and not your stepfather? OMG, this smells bad to me. Don't do it. Yes, the marriage isn't and never was legal. By the way, your original post isn't very clear that it was you they symbolically married to the cousin, which is why I think many commenters are confused. I got it because I'm familiar with that culture, but you could probably edit to make that clearer. You said the day was a blur. You might be legally married to her. It wouldn't be recognized here or there from what I know for several reasons. Are you willing to risk your marriage and your independence in what you think you know? Devious people have devious ways. There are far too many unknowns. Not the a-hole. Don't trust your mom and stepdad. They took you to a strange country to marry you off. Don't go there with them. You might not be able to make it back. Or their daughter. Holy smokes. Do not take a female child to whatever foreign family is marrying off children without their consent. Stepdad specifically requested OP bring his daughter. Stepdad made this mess. He can use his American dollars to bribe whatever officials he needs to do fix it. Forge signatures, whatever. Not OP's problem and not worth the risk. We do agree on that. They wouldn't be coming. Don't go. If it's that easy, tell your stepdad to bring your wife to undo the marriage. If it was symbolic, the symbolic divorce can happen in your country. But my guess is it wasn't symbolic. Am I the a-hole for embarrassing my wife by taking our son from her in front of her family? So I, 30 male, have a 5-year-old with my wife of 6 years, Chloe, 28 female. Never had a big issue between us. Truly is my best friend and someone until recently I trusted fully. So, I do not have a relationship with my mom, and I haven't since I was 15. Without going into all the details, my mom broke up the family to marry some dude. I told her when I was 15 that if she chooses this road, then there wouldn't be coming back. She was making a selfish decision and needed to think about it. She chooses to stay with a dude and move in with him. I haven't seen her since. I told her last time we spoke, my 18th birthday, that my kid will never know her and that is my wish. She broke up with this dude a few years ago and tried getting in contact with me. When I blocked her, she tried my wife, who I informed of the situation, and she agreed that she would never contact my mom, which was hard for my wife to accept because she doesn't have her mom anymore. My wife was pushy at first about me opening up to reconciling, but when she learned I wasn't budging, she learned to accept it. So, this weekend I'm fixing the Ring doorbell we have and finally learned how to see the old footage. That is when I see my mom on the camera. I go back months and see her more and more. During work, she was stopping by for hours at a time. My wife on the camera letting her in. I texted my wife asking why she let my mom see our son. No response. Hours go by, nothing back. I knew they were at a family day thing, so I printed pictures of the videos, wrote a letter that stated how upset I was, and laid out my plans to go stay at my dad's with our son till I knew I could trust her again. Then I drove to the party, walked into the backyard, said hello to everyone. I made sure nobody could tell I was mad. But I grabbed my son, walked up to my wife, and handed her the letter. Told her to check her phone and read the letter privately. I told my son we had to leave, quietly packed up his stuff and headed to the car. My wife read the letter in this time and ran over to me, asking if we could talk. I said it wasn't the time or place, that she could call once I got to my dad's. She then caused a scene crying and begging to talk. I didn't want a scene, so I left. I got to my dad's and then we talked. She's saying I'm an a-hole for where I did this. I said she's the one who broke down in front of everyone. I didn't cause a scene. She did. I tried making it as low-key as possible. She chose to not answer her phone. She chose to read a letter in front of everyone when I said not to, and she's the one who cried and begged for a ride home. So she embarrassed herself with her actions. I've been staying at my dad's since Saturday, and we plan on coming home sometime this weekend. But I don't think I need to apologize. But I'm still being called a-hole. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. That is a very deep betrayal. As someone who was estranged from my father for some time, this would be utterly devastating. And I'm so sorry. I hope she thinks very deeply about what she's done and does everything in her power to regain your trust. Something I haven't seen many people mention: the kid is 5. He's old enough to talk. Sure, he's not waxing lyrical on the merits of Chaucer over Shakespeare, but he's old enough to be able to say, "Daddy, I saw Granny today." But in the last few months, the kid hasn't let anything slip, which to me suggests he's been coached to keep it secret. That hadn't even crossed my mind. I'm estranged from my mom, and if my partner was letting her into our home without my knowledge, I would immediately leave, let alone seeing our child without my knowledge. And then that adds even more layers to the whole thing. How did the kid not let anything slip? Had to have been coached, which is playing with freaking fire. Everyone sucks here. Sure, you made it as low-key as possible. Apart from the fact where despite your son not being in any immediate danger that would warrant urgent intervention on your part, you just had to do this in public, instead of waiting for her to get home. And don't act like it's all on her for not wanting to wait to read your damn letter to figure out what the hell was going on, or subsequently freaking out. Let's face it, you wanted her publicly humiliated. And while one can argue whether or not she deserved that for blatantly disregarding your wishes regarding contact with your mom, if you want this marriage to survive the situation, admit you acted out of anger, so you can focus on the actual problem and see if that's something you two can fix or not. I think you're definitely reaching. Did you just glaze over the part where he had already texted her multiple times before writing his letter and going over there to get a son? He might not have handled it perfectly, but saying he wanted her publicly humiliated is far stretch. He doesn't need to apologize for his feelings. She lied to him and disregarded his wishes for months. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not forgiving my parents when they tried to force institutionalize me? I, 42 female, started having very severe panic attacks. I'm talking loud, long, messy panic attacks. My husband and I have been married for 19 years and have 3 children, 18, 17, and 13 at a time. It obviously was extremely difficult for all of us. January 2021, I went on disability and entered into an intensive outpatient program to help sort out why I was having these panic attacks and how to prevent them, and spent 12 weeks in the program. I was trying to do right by my family and do what was best for me. My IOP ended on Thursday, April 29th, and my husband and my dad asked me if I was better. I was caught off guard by this, as I was still processing what I went through in my program, and protectively replied no because I wasn't ready to share how I felt. On Monday, May 3rd, my husband told me I needed to either go to our cabin for a week or be institutionalized, and that my father and mother would back him and they would kick me out of the house. We rent from my parents if I didn't go. I was understandably confused AF, even more so when I called my father in tears to confirm this. Apparently, they thought I was bipolar, but that's no excuse, especially as I was being very closely monitored by the medical professionals. After an hour of driving, I had to pull over as I was hysterical. It took my BFF, who is an MD, to convince my husband that not only was this not okay, but there wouldn't even be a program that would take me, as I certainly wasn't a threat to myself or others. This whole thing was driven by my mother. My husband really doesn't understand much about mental health or anything medical. I was mortified, but I went home. During this time, my hand had been going numb, on and off, but figured it was due to the stress of the situation. On Friday, May 7th, my whole arm went dead due to stroke. It turns out I had a disease in my carotid arteries, but a stressful event pushed my brain over the edge, so to speak, causing the stroke. I told my extended family, brothers and parents about the stroke over Zoom, as I was still emotionally gutted by their attempt to force institutionalize me. I told them that they were not welcome at my house for the time being, as their presence was highly triggering after what they did. My husband feels horrible about what happened, entered therapy, and has made a lot of progress. My parents, on the other hand, refused to apologize, as they only had good intentions. which is very hurtful, and have repeatedly said they aren't sorry they did it. My brothers all think I'm the a-hole, as I won't forgive my parents and let it go so the family can all hang out again. I don't feel safe when I'm with any of them anymore. I really can't see how I'm the a-hole. So please, I want honest opinions. Am I the a-hole? Should I just let this go? Some added info. No, I did not have a history of panic attacks. It was a very sudden onset. At the same time, I dropped 30 pounds without trying. It was very scary. All of my symptoms were from the disease that helped create the perfect storm for my stroke. No amount of meds or therapy could fix it, as it wasn't actually a mental health problem. It is now, though, after what my family put me through. Many people have expressed concern for my children, and I want you all to know that I appreciate that. I promise I try to keep them as far away from my panic attacks as possible. I would isolate in the bathroom and scream into a pillow. I would often get to the point that I couldn't feel anything around me, and they were terrifying for me and the rest of my household. My mother called CPS, again because she thought I was manic, and CPS saw that we were literally doing everything we possibly could, given the situation. They were very kind and supportive. The worst things in the world are done with the best of intentions. Dr. Alan Grant. Not the a-hole. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Really old saying. Not the a-hole. You can't forgive people who never ask forgiveness. Thank you. That's exactly how I feel. More than once, I literally begged them to apologize, even if they didn't mean it, to help me get past this. I am honestly surprised you forgave your husband. For me, that would be divorce-worthy. If he knew I was sick and struggling, it essentially kicked me out of my own house, threatening that either I leave my house when I was vulnerable or he would try to institutionalize me or make me homeless. I would change the locks the next time he was away, file for divorce, and look to move somewhere my parents definitely wouldn't know. Also, you have tenant rights, especially if you pay rent. Don't let anyone bully and threaten you. Kicking you out is illegal. Honestly, I'm still considering it. My current goal is my health, my kids, and getting back to work FT. Then I'll decide what to do about my husband. He may not be in the picture long term anymore. Next story. Am I the a-hole for pointing out the role my sister played in her toxic relationship? My sister, Eleanor, 26 female, dated her ex-boyfriend Scott, 30 male, for a little over a year in 2017. My parents and I, 27 male, got to watch their relationship play out from the sidelines. And it definitely wasn't the healthiest. Scott was struggling hard with alcohol addiction and would raise his voice when he got drunk. Eleanor seemed more interested in provoking these situations than providing actual compassion and care. It was toxic all the way around, and they both played parts in it. During their relationship, Scott and I talked often. I would reach out to him whenever Eleanor would come stay at our parents' house after a fight. Sometimes the text conversations and phone calls weren't even fully coherent, but he would thank me sometime later if he remembered our interaction. I think I might have been one of the only people he had in his corner. I was in Eleanor's corner too, but witnessing her not limiting her alcohol consumption around Scott despite knowing his struggles was really leaving a bad taste in my mouth. Following their breakup and a downward spiral from Scott, I was eventually able to reconnect with him. I encouraged him to get help, and I stood by him throughout his sobriety journey. As of right now, he's going on 2 years alcohol-free. He's my closest friend and my confidant. We're life partners, and I feel lucky that I get to be a part of his support system. And a support system is exactly what he needs. But he has not been welcomed at any family events of mine since the breakup despite his sobriety. I've taken him to some, but my parents and my sister have made it abundantly clear that they will not speak to him, or do more than just tolerate his presence. This all came to a head this past weekend. I told my family I wanted to talk to them at the family brunch my parents host occasionally. Once there, I tried to initiate a conversation about forgiveness, but Eleanor basically wouldn't allow it. She would interrupt me by saying things Scott had previously said to her. I tried to ignore her and have a productive talk with my parents, but eventually I snapped and told her that if she had supported Scott in the way he had needed, and not selfishly continued to drink in front of him despite very obvious alcoholism struggles, then maybe things would have been different. I left but have received text from my parents and her about how out of line it was, and how bad of a brother I am. Am I the a-hole? Edited to add, I am not saying Scott's addiction was my sister's fault or putting any blame on her. I'm also not excusing his actions. I'm simply saying that both sides of this relationship were toxic, and I wish forgiveness was an option. You're the a-hole. He had a problem, not her. Congratulations on fixing him. You doing that and then dating your sister's ex-boyfriend who was toxic and abusive to her says a lot about you. You're the selfish one. Edit. My question is also why you felt so compelled to console and help a stranger mistreating your sister. The one arising the issues, leaving your sister on the sidelines and blaming her? Very strange behavior. Perfectly stated. The pride about fixing Scott and judging his sister harshly was so evident in his post. In addition, I'm skeptical about anyone's attempt to be the mediator and force forgiveness. You're the a-hole for initiating this weird relationship with your sister's boyfriend at a time and current ex. If I was her, I'd cut you off. Your sister comes home after a fight, needing support. And instead of giving it to her, you support the guy she fought with? I don't know why you would expect them to accept your guy's relationship. You've clearly betrayed your sister. Opie said he and Scott are dating now. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my father-in-law he can starve if he wants because I didn't care? My husband and I, both 26, recently hosted a family dinner to announce our pregnancy. It's important to add that my husband doesn't have a close relationship with his father, but we keep him around because he still has 3 minor siblings that we love and care for. My father-in-law is the type of person that still thinks women should serve men at dining times. Like he has to be served first because he's the breadwinner and stuff like that. We usually don't care since we mostly ignore them. However, this time my family was present and we consider he fooled around and found out. My dad is my favorite person in the world. My mom died when I was little, and my dad took care of my older sister and I. They're the only family I have left. At dinner, both my husband and I cooked things we knew both of our families would like. The first issue started when my father-in-law tried to sit at one of the heads of the table, and my husband said no. He sat at one and I sat at the other. Me with my father and sister to either side, and him with his brothers, so my father-in-law was kind of in the middle and didn't like it. The second problem, and the cause of all of this, is that everyone was kind of serving themselves. However, my dad has a damaged nerve on his right hand, and he struggles when holding spoons/forks and such. My sister bought him a Parkinson's-friendly cutlery set that he brings around, but a big spoon for serving is still hard for him, so I offered to serve him his plate while my sister served him his drink, and then we all sat to eat and chat. 3 or 4 minutes after that, my father-in-law asks out loud, "Is no one going to serve me my plate?" And my husband looks at him confused and says, "No, we don't do that here." And my mother-in-law just gets up in a hurry and takes his plate. But my father-in-law says no, and that the hostess did it for her father, so she can do it for me. And I say, yes, my father who has an injured hand. You are fine. He says that he won't eat then, and I just shrugged and said that he could starve and I didn't care. He leaves with my mother-in-law, and while everyone agrees with me, my own father said that it was a disrespectful thing to say and I should apologize for the way I did it. So am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. You didn't instigate the situation. He was being ridiculous and you declined to entertain his behavior. Exactly. Not the a-hole. Your father-in-law, on the other hand, is an entitled a-hole. Not the a-hole. Your father-in-law needs to know not everyone follows his sexist views. That in someone else's home, he doesn't get to act that way. If his own wife wants to be his servant, that's her choice. In your home, you can make the call, and his attitude is messed up. You need to make sure he doesn't treat you the same way he treats his wife. Look, I don't think there's anything wrong with making your man a plate. I grew up watching that, but the difference is, my aunts and grandma weren't forced to do it. It was something they liked doing. Hell, I say cooking for you is how I show love, but if I met a man like father-in-law, I wouldn't serve him a damn thing. Like you said, his attitude is messed up. Not only you are not the a-hole, you're a freaking legend. Screw that guy. If he holds such traditional values, he'd respect the house rules of the house he was in. But he didn't, because he doesn't. He's just sexist and entitled.